Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the Water Trio podcast. I'm Cassandra, and I'm joined by my dear friends and colleagues, Kelly and Alicia. So we are going to be outlining a few of the highlights for the fortnight between the 31st of August through until the 13th of September. So how are you both? Good?
Yep.
Loving the summertime.
Yeah, awesome. So, couple of the highlights. So what are we going to start with today, girls? I think it might be the lunation of the Pisces full moon. So you're going to talk about that one, Alicia? Or was it Kelly? I can't remember now.
We'll all talk about We'll all talk about it.
Be mutable.
The Pisces kick off this one.
I did wear a blue top in honor of the full moon in Pisces. I was like, blue in September. I was like, full moon in Pisces. Let's do this.
I love it. Love it.
So the full moon is happening around 10 degrees of Pisces. It looks like it's going to be on the evening of September 1st. Like if you're in the Eastern time zone in the US, it's going to technically be early in the morning on the 2nd. But if you're in the Pacific time zone in the US, it's going to be late on the 1st. If you're in Australia, it's going to be the 2nd. If you're in Europe, it'll be the 2nd as well. So it's that evening of like September 1st going over to September 2nd. Full moon in Pisces. What great things can I say about this? No. I do love the full moon in Pisces in the middle of Virgo season because it does create an opportunity to kind of slow down, to chillax a bit, to maybe pull back from all the doing that happens in Virgo season. Like the sun in Virgo can be very productive and really make you keep busy and do all the things. And the full moon in Pisces, it's not exactly conjunct Neptune, but of course it's close-ish to the planet Neptune, which is also in Pisces. So we're going to get that sense of wanting to take a break, maybe needing an escape or a slowdown or a chance to kind of maybe just pause. It's all the Pisces things. It's feeling things, it's intuiting things, it's being overwhelmed at times with how you feel or how much is going on. And that's where that slower pace, maybe some quiet time away from busy deadlines can be really important under the full moon in Pisces. Be a great full moon for things like meditation, if you need to get in touch with your emotions or even do some healing or let go of some emotional baggage. This full moon kind of has that lovely, gentle, let's let it out. Lish, you had made a beautiful point about how the full moon is in aspect to Uranus as well, which I was really interested to hear more about, if you have any thoughts.
I'm just having a quick look at the chart of it right now, actually. And because Uranus, this is happening at 10 degrees Pisces, and you've got Uranus at 10 degrees of Taurus.
So let's quickly treat our listeners, anyone watching on YouTube, I'm just going to put that chart on the screen while you talk, Leish.
And I just feel it's that sense of, we talked a lot in the last episode about how sometimes Virgo can overdo the data. It can overdo the analysis. It can get too far into this. So I always see the full moon in Pisces as that chance to weigh anchor and kind of go with the flow for just a couple of days. Like you were saying, Kel, kind of get out of ticking all the lists and dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's and actually get into some flow with things. But with that Uranus there's this sense of what is it that you need to change about you to make this something that you do regularly, that you do all the time, that you bring that rest in, that relaxation in. So it's not just for a one-off event that happens once a year, but it's something that you regularly do, regularly nourish and support yourself with, is by taking that time out, by taking that space. And I link Pisces a lot with creativity, but that kind of creativity that comes when you push back the space so that you become a vessel for something else to pour into. It's that sense that ideas don't come from us, they come from something higher, somewhere else. But when you're busy doing all the things, it can't drop in. So it's almost like, I don't know, there's the Uranus brings the mental, but Pisces brings the felt. And so you're able to intuit on two levels under this full moon. I think what you're saying about the overwhelm is real. Full moons are emotional as they are, but in water signs, it's usually extra. So I don't know, like allow the space for emotions to come to the surface, watch the sad movie. Big Blue's always one that makes me cry that I like to put on to kind of allow the tearjerkers to come in. But just making that space and seeing what's comforting and how you can really build rest into your routine is something that this full moon can be about. And that means you're having to release expectations on yourself of, okay, who should I be? What should I do to be seen as, I don't know, it's that you don't have to work hard to be a good person kind of thing. Anyway, what about you,
that's like the
Cass?
Pisces mantra.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Cass, your Pisces is important in your chart too.
Yeah, it's an angle. I think, I like that you brought up the Uranus aspects. I think that's really important because that takes the edge off things. And what I like about this combo is that you can combine your intuition, the Pisces full moon, with instinct, which is the Uranus component. And that can, lead you somewhere or take you somewhere that might like defy some logic or reason, but feels really good. And I also really do like the idea of, setting yourself up for this in the future as well, because sometimes when you take that sudden break or that sudden rest and you realize, oh man, I really needed that. I need to do this more often, like whether it's just I know what I'm craving personally is just to have like one night or 2 nights, even if it's just to go down the Gold Coast or stay in the city in Brisbane. It's about as far as we're allowed to go right now. But, even if it's just a little bit of a change of scenery and, it can just be the real small things. And it's almost like that real soulful rest or change that you didn't know you needed. And then you're like, oh man, I need to do this more often. So, I think that can be really positive or really helpful for you as well. And just to take that kind of breath and space from the busyness, and just, allow that combo of intuition and instinct and let that be your guide through that sort of overwhelm or uncertainty. Is maybe not rely on the Virgo, the logic, and trying to sort things out. It's just like, this feels good, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to go for it, not really think it through too much and just allow the feel to be the guide there. So it could be just like a touch exciting, not like in drama or exciting, but it's like, oh, this is really great. Like rather than just rest, it's just maybe a bit more exciting or active potentially. So
yeah, it's like that recalibration that comes out when you take yourself out of your habitual, go on that holiday, have that break, and then you're like, okay, I want to approach things in a really new way. Yeah, I like that, Cass.
Yeah, really quite fresh and different. So that's the full moon in Pisces. We mentioned it was 10 degrees, yeah? So that's the lunation, the full moon of this month. And I think I might do a Kelly here. I think I'm going to introduce myself for the next aspects, and that's the sign changes. So that's the next thing for, or am I missing something?
I was just going to touch on Venus Saturn.
The Venus Saturn, sure.
Yeah. Which is happening on the same day, September 2nd. Venus now at about 25 Cancer, Saturn at 25 Capricorn. One of the reasons I wanted to mention this is in some of the older forms of astrology, an opposition to the planet Saturn can be one of the more difficult types of aspects that we have. It doesn't mean everything is bad, but it does mean we might be dealing with some more challenging material, or we might be like doing things that just have to be done there and then. And one of the reasons I wanted to mention it is I remember back to when Mercury was at the end of Cancer opposing Saturn, and that was around early August, around August 3, literally a month ago. That happened on the last full moon, actually. And that had like a heavier feeling, but I remember having a really productive day because I did a huge amount of filing, which is a Mercury thing. Like I did Saturn stuff, got organized. And I don't just mean like I filed papers in my box to file, which I did do, but while Mercury had been in Cancer, I had accumulated piles of paper all over my office. And I just took time to go through each of the piles and sort and sift and, chuck out or recycle or put where they belong. And there's something about Venus, Saturn of that sorting and sifting and put where they belong that's coming in more about relationships, more about the things that do or don't bring pleasure to us, because these are more Venus topics now. So Venus opposite Saturn is a clarifying aspect about your priorities with other people. And this can run a whole spectrum of things from, who are the people that really matter and are they getting, your best time or not? Are there some limits within a relationship or a professional partnership that aren't being respected that need to be discussed? Or have you got a boundary that, when I think of boundaries in relationships, I always think of my grandfather's farm where having to keep the fences up to keep the cows in was important. But every now and then, like a fence would get knocked down and you'd have to go back and kind of rebuild or put the fence back up. And I think sometimes Venus Saturn aspects are like, where are the fences or the boundaries in your relationships? Where have they gotten sloppy? And now how do we firm them up again? Is it the right boundary and we just need to build the fence line exactly where it was? Or because circumstances have changed, does the fence line or the boundary need to change a little bit too? And so I think there's some big questions around partnerships and commitment and people and priorities that will come up under that Venus-Saturn aspect. Full moons, which are an opposition between the sun and moon, have a little bit of that people and partnership and relationship tone as well. So I think between the two, it's a big day for kind of feeling your way forward and maybe not being super clear, but knowing that there are some conversations or some limits that could be useful to bring in about Venus-Saturn there. Do you girls have any thoughts on Venus-Saturn? Is it an aspect that you keep an eye on at all?
I think, what you were saying, I was thinking about how Venus in Cancer can be, I don't know, somebody who likes to look after and nurture everybody else but forgets themselves and kind of gets into that, not a people pleasing, but a people comforting kind of role, and they forget what they need. And because we've got to remember that all of this is kind of happening with Mars in Aries square to this too, and that's going to be highlighted over the weekend. So there might be this friction or itchy scratchy or resentment coming up, and those are the boundaries that you were talking about, those fences that need to be put in place so that we, if we're in that Venus in Cancer place, we feel safe and others feel safe too. It's like, okay, I can look after you and I can nurture you to a point, but I have to make sure my cup's full and then I'm filling yours from the overflow of mine, not trying to fill yours from an empty cup, if that makes sense. So it's putting, it's that opposition, that trying to find the right space. Okay, how much do I go into the nurturing and the caring and the looking after, Venus in Capricorn and Venus in Cancer, as opposed to Saturn in Capricorn, which is like, okay, well, what's the reality of this? How much can I give and where do my boundaries lie and where can I logically give anymore? So it's kind of working that out for each of us.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Lishi. Like it's very much Venus in Cancer naturally does want to care and nurture and protect and do for others. And it sort of reminds me a little bit of, something my mum used to say when we were kids, and she'd be like, well, God helps those who help themselves. And sometimes Venus in Cancer has to remember that other people can actually help themselves, and embracing the no can sometimes be really, that in itself is the boundary placer, and where you have been doing too much or giving too much or nurturing too much. And I mean, I know myself personally, sometimes, I'm sure a lot of mums would experience this when you're doing things for your kids. Like you could easily just quickly do that thing because it's going to be easier and faster to do it yourself. And it's sort of an extension of looking after your kids. And then you get to that point where it's like, well, I actually should probably be enforcing this issue and go, actually, you can pick up those clothes from the floor. You left them there. And so whether that's just that simple kind of practical example, or if it's, you've fallen into those like loose habits within your relationship. And I think all relationships, personal or professional, as you said, Kel, can fall into habits and patterns, and then you might feel a little bit resentful in some ways, or you feel like you're giving much and that energy exchange is a little bit out of balance again. And it's just about like leveling up the how much you're giving and how much you're getting again, and having maybe the courage in a way to sort of embrace that. And that might be kind of, and understand that, and just have the confrontation of it too, because, these planets are, against each other. And sometimes like I'll, in session with people, and when these sort of things come up, I might even sort of suggest to them, go out to dinner with this person, whether it's a lunch date, if it's a more of a professional setting, because even in partnership, like at home, for example, we don't really sit opposite each other. But when you go to a restaurant, you're kind of forward. That's just where you naturally go. And so you're in that opposition, and you speak and you're engaged and your face on. And so sometimes that can be more of a way to embrace some of those more difficult topics, have a nice meal, couple of glasses of wine, and before you know it, you're talking about things where you're not distracted by the Venus and Cancer domestics or the habits or the routines that are comfortable. You're a little bit outside of your comfort zone, so you can do these sorts of things. And sometimes that can be really helpful to establish a positive connection while dealing with some stuff that may be a little bit tricky or challenging too.
Yeah, good point, Cass. And I think, as well, one thing that you were talking about, and I remember talking to parents when I was working in early childhood, is trusting other people to have the resilience to look after themselves. And when we get into that over-functioning or under-functioning, it's that flip-flop, that back and forth. It's working out, okay, if I over-function here, which I never do, but if I over-function here, that means somebody else is forced into under-functioning and lose confidence because of that. And this can be where if I back off a bit, that allows them to come in and function.
Rise up a bit.
Yeah, and let me have a rest, have a break. I might have just given people a little bit of insight into my domestic life, but anyway.
No, I mean, I think
It's what happens.
When you were talking, Cassie, I was like, this is such a thing about parenting. It's not exclusive to the parenting relationship, but I think you can see it really easily and clearly. The idea that saying no to your child is sometimes the hardest choice in the moment, but it leads to a better longer-term outcome. And, whether it's pick up the stuff on the floor or eat with your mouth closed, or look the person in the eye while you're saying thank you to them, or whatever it happens to be. And that idea of it's a little harder in the moment, but it will give you a better structure or foundation in the long run. That's the essence of this aspect in any kind of relationship that you're dealing with. It's going to be awkward or uncomfortable, or I've got to say something that's, it's easier if I just don't say it. But if you say it, then you can have some sort of strengthening there. Now, sometimes under a Venus-Saturn aspect, you say something that you need to say because it's real and right for you, and the other person doesn't respect what you've said. And that can be a clue that there might be just too different a set of values or priorities here for things to continue in the way that you'd hoped. That can happen in a friendship or a professional partnership, or if you're in a romantic relationship where you thought everything, you're on the same page, and then you realize actually we really have a difference of opinions here. Not every difference of opinions in a relationship is terminal and means the relationship should end, but it's just good to be aware of where you differ and how you see things differently. So, I think
clarity piece.
That clarity. So anyway, again, this is an aspect that, I think I love this type of aspect, Cass, the way you love the Mars-Saturn aspect. So I know we've got other things to chat about.
But I just one more thing.
Just one more thing. I love it. Says the Gemini rising. Brilliant.
It's just like the maturity piece too. Like I think these sort of aspects are a little bit easier to handle with maturity. Doesn't necessarily has to be with age, but it might be just, it can you're ready to rise above to the next level with somebody or a situation by having that more challenging conversation to know where the priorities are. And that's maturity, like being able to face something head on and potentially the ultimate outcome is I might have to walk away from this, but I'm okay with that.
But I'm respecting myself, and if that's the outcome of respecting myself, then so be it. But and that's something that comes with wisdom and maturity, isn't it? That respect or love for self does come above, compromising who you are to keep someone else happy or to stay somewhere.
I love you, but I love me more.
Oh,
about
one of the best lines. One of the best lines. While returning the $10,000 ring.
Is it a diamond ring or a ring with diamonds?
Yes. For anybody who's not of our age, we are quoting lines from the Sex and the City movie, which we have all seen many, many times. We're women of a certain age, and that was part of our adulthood, I guess.
It was, it was like the turn of the century, and we were all in our very early 20s, and we kind of grew up with that stuff. So anyway, Sex and the City.
One last thing.
Oh,
yeah, I love it.
Well, just because we're talking about
with
maturity.
The last word.
Oh, I thought it was Sex and the City.
Yeah, well, that one too. But we're talking about maturity, and this is the third time that Venus in Cancer has come and opposed Saturn in Capricorn since 2018. We had it happen, and so every time recently that Venus in Cancer has gone through here, including that meat grinder last year, there is a sense. So this isn't new. And it's what I'm getting from what you were both saying, what we've been talking about is this might be that, look back to when these have happened. You may be facing realities and you may be leveling up. You may be gaining a new maturity every time this happens. And it gives you the opportunity this time to have that final clarity, because this will be the last time these two meet in these particular signs. So just adding that in too.
Love it. That's a great point, Leash. Okay.
Yeah, it could be like the finale of a series of issues, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you've grown up enough to meet together, or perhaps it's time to have the maturity to say, sayonara.
The conscious uncoupling.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I love when we talk about
I'm coming out
those
of my liners tonight.
You're pulling all the
on
90s
fire.
stuff out.
So, Cass, continuing this theme of being on fire and witty words and fabulous things to say, you're going to tell us about Mercury moving into Libra and Venus moving into Leo.
Yeah, so we've got two of our personal planets changing signs, and so that definitely provides, a shift in tone to the way that we communicate and relate to other people. So we've got Venus moving into Leo, and we've also got Mercury moving into Libra. So I kind of love how this is coming, hot off the heels of Venus Saturn as well, because if you didn't have the whole, Venus Saturn tangent that we've just been on, that's going to really kind of help maybe set us up for then Mercury being ruled by Venus and in Libra, because Mercury in Libra is probably not the most confrontational versions of Mercury, and this is where maybe those conversations can get extended to how we can, negotiate new terms of agreement, or perhaps how we can, find new ways to work together, or conversations that help gel or combine, or working together towards, some relationship, someone or something. So Mercury in Libra, I think is quite a lovely placement. People who have Mercury in Libra always just, I don't know, there's just a certain like moorishness or a calmness to the way that they speak. There's something that like, I could be in a crowded room, but I hear that Mercury in Libra, and it is just such a pleasurable kind of communicator. They just have a way, like it's words with honey, or they can, seal the deal and you don't know that your deal is being sealed. Like they just have this way about them. They just got this way, which is quite, I don't know. What do you girls think about Mercury in Libra in that way?
Well, I have it, so...
Oh, of course you do. You could get me to do anything, Lishi.
Sometimes it wasn't always the best thing for everybody, but it was. Yep, mine's retrograde though.
And you have that, like a calming in your voice. It's a calmness, like that's, a likable sound. I don't know what other people think about it, but I think it's lovely. In radio voice.
Yes.
And what about
yes.
you, Kel? What are your thoughts around the Mercury in Libra?
Mercury in Libra, I do think, it's this beautiful negotiator, diplomat, somebody who can express a point really eloquently, really, clearly. Sometimes they can see both sides of the point of view, and other times they can just speak very clearly about a point of view that is going to promote justice or equality or fairness. There's that real, the image that keeps pressing in my mind as we're talking is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the congresswoman out of New York, who has Mercury in Libra right on her midheaven. Now, she does have some other fiery placements in her chart that gives her a real sense of that spark and that dynamic quality. But if you listen to her talk, she's incredibly articulate. She's very well spoken. You may or may not agree with the things that she's saying, but it's hard to sort of say that she's not making a clear point, if you like. And I think it's that feeling of Mercury being in an air sign, but also being in an air sign ruled by Venus, where you get a lot of those ideas coming through where it's like, okay, that, I can listen to that because I'm not saying she's perfect and she's not the only example of it. Obviously, Alicia, you can tell us more about this. You have it. But one point you said, Cass, that I think is spot on is Mercury and Libra, like renegotiating or discussing the terms of engagement or the terms of an agreement. And is this fair? Is this still appropriate? Do we feel that there is a level of like justice or equality, in the way things are going? And I think conversations around those topics are going to be able to happen maybe in a balanced way when Mercury is in Libra. So yeah, it's going to be a good little placement to look forward to.
Yeah,
I feel so seen by you both. Like that was so spot on. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly like, in your voice, not just the sound of it, but often in what you say, you are sort of fighting for that equality or the justice piece and things like that. It's very part of like your voice and what you share and communicate. So Mercury being in Libra till about the 28th of September. And so that might be like a time to watch even from a social media perspective where, some of the human rights and Black Lives Matter and different elements of justice that have been, part of the conversation, this year and in recent months might start to be elevated again or sort of be put up front. Because, with COVID and all different things happening in the world, like we're just being pulled in so many like opposite directions. So we might see more of that sort of come to the fore again during this transit.
Well, especially because Mercury in Libra is going to be opposing Mars towards the end and squaring all those things, especially towards the end of its time in Libra, there is going to be that tension and that I think, what you were both saying about justice and about fairness, like for me, ever since a child, things had to be fair. It didn't matter as long as it was fair. And the truth had to be out there. There's this thing about, truth too. And my name literally means truth seeker. So it's that kind of seeing of, okay, what's the truth of the matter? But doing it in a way that's fair and balanced and allows everybody to have a voice. I love being on the board of AFAN. It's a consensus network. So this is an astrological networking association and it's consensus. And my Mercury in Libra loves it because everybody has a voice and we don't agree to do anything until everybody agrees. So we never move forward. So it can be that actually it's held back. But meanwhile, we've got Mars in Aries going, well, come on, let's drive it forward. So it's this back and forth perhaps with these that the tension will lie in days ahead. But for now, I think it's really lovely to just have that charming diplomatic voice to add to the fray and perhaps get things done in that way.
One quick technical thing on Mercury in Libra. When Mercury gets to the end of Libra, it's actually going to be going into shadow because Mercury's next retrograde will end at the end of Libra in November. So it's almost like we've got about 2 weeks of Mercury in Libra before it gets into the shadow, where we can do a lot of this, great negotiation and sort of fair-based discussion. And then Mercury starts to get into a little bit more, I think, the idea of revisiting topics from the past or going deeper, or conversations starting that then might take longer to resolve or complete. That kicks in later in September when Mercury is then in the shadow part of its time in Libra.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What?
Okay.
Venus
Cass, in Leo.
Venus in Leo?
Yeah, and I guess, Mercury in Libra will be looking to Venus in Leo. So during, pretty much the entire transit. So, all the things that we've been saying may even be a little bit louder. But Venus in Leo in of herself is, when I see Venus in Leo, and I think this is, sometimes a bit of a signature in Venus in most of the fixed signs. Venus in Leo has a real awareness of who she is, what she's worth, and, loves to sort of adorn herself. She's not afraid of luxury. She's not afraid of some of the, the trinkets or the luxurious qualities that, Leo often likes to indulge in. And so Venus in Leo can be a time where we can enjoy a little bit of that in of ourselves. Just that little, we are all a little bit kind of restricted into many of the pleasures and enjoyment that we would normally take for granted. And so Venus in Leo might be that time where we can enjoy, just a little bit of extra sugar, or a little bit of extra, well, it could be eating it, but just a little bit of, the sprinkles on top, so to speak, or a little bit of luxury that we haven't been able to access or tap into, due to, recent events and things. What do you girls think about Venus in Leo? What are you looking forward to with this transit?
Leash?
I just think it's that continuation of Leo season and the fire it continues to bring in all of this. And I don't know, just that she is such a pleasure seeker in Venus in Leo. Like, this is kind of abandonment to thrills in many ways. And I think it's Madonna who has Venus in Leo, doesn't she?
Yeah,
She does.
I'm just looking up some charts of people with Venus in Leo, and
I was just
Madge is definitely on the list.
Yeah. And Jennifer Lawrence, I think, as well, from memory. It's these kind of people who throw themselves in there and just kind of don't really care what other people think in many ways. And it's this abandonment to pleasure. It's like, I'm going to have fun and damn the consequences. I might have a hangover tomorrow, but for tonight or for today, let's just have the pleasure of being here and being in the moment. And, Venus always loves little luxuries anyway, but definitely with Leo, this is somebody who likes to do luxuries on a bigger scale. So allowing ourselves to do this and to have this, and maybe it will, if we do end up, I know many places are still in lockdown or back in lockdown, this might be a little bit add to cart on the luxury goods. Or being a bit careful about doing that. Yeah. So, that's kind of my quick take on that. What about
an adornment piece there? Buying that one lipstick that just makes you feel amazing. Yeah, I mean,
or the Birkin handbag. Like those really beautiful. I remember the women that used to come in when I worked in fine dining in Sydney years ago. They used to come into the restaurant and their handbags had their own little chair so that they didn't have to put their handbags down on the floor.
Oh, wow.
Like, that's so Venus in Leo.
Venus in Leo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit diva.
Yeah. The other thing I think about with Venus in Leo, especially when I think of some of the women who have Venus in Leo, like Whitney Houston, Barbara Walters, Coco Chanel, and even I'm going to probably pronounce her surname incorrectly, so I apologize, Malala Yousafzai, the Pakistani human rights activist, the young girl that was shot. All of these women, they sort of end up in these leadership roles. Like, they sort of become these real figureheads. I mean, I think about Barbara Walters and her, like, breaking the glass ceiling in her journalism career, for instance. And Whitney Houston being incredibly successful in the 80s when it was very hard for artists of color or Black artists to get known. And she was more successful than white, than musicians that were in like white groups of men, basically. She was so amazingly successful in the 80s. And of course, Coco Chanel with, I think that example, if you like, that mash of being a leader in their field, but also being in the fashion industry as well. And Coco Chanel comes from very humble upbringing, but was able to sort of parlay her way into, this sort of enduring type legacy. So there's something about Venus in Leo that to me speaks of sort of feminine inspired strength or leadership as well. It's that idea, of those two kind of coming together. So
it's very queenly.
It's very queen, that regal, sovereign kind of quality.
And the constancy each of them had to have.
The enduring
in their
kind of quality.
Skills and what they were able to bring to the table. And look, Whitney didn't so much, but her talent never waned. It wasn't, it was the other, and she had that beautiful, strong, bold voice of Venus in Leo. That never went. But yeah, just look at Madonna. Like she's still belting them out. Like that constancy of Leo that keeps on going.
She said she gave a speech a few years ago, and she said the most controversial thing I've ever done was to stick around.
Yeah.
And I think, out of all the women that we've spoken about with Venus and Leo, they definitely have that staying power. Again, that fixed fire, like that enduring legacy even. And from that, the feminine legacy perspective as well. So
it just keeps showing up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a very kind of powerful, queenly.
There's a real strength, isn't it? Like I love that quote by Madge. Like what was it? The most radical,
the most
thing,
controversial thing I've ever done was to stick around.
Yeah.
Because I think she does have Venus very tightly configured with Uranus in Leo from memory. So
That would make
again,
sense.
the
She
controversy.
kept reinventing herself.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's definitely Venus in Leo. And, personal confession here, like if I have to attend to domestics in my home, I do it with lipstick on. Like I'll get like
I love it.
And if you are in lockdown, if you are feeling miserable, as Marilyn Monroe, just pour yourself a glass of champagne and put your lipstick on. Or maybe it's Elizabeth Taylor, I don't know. But one of those kind of classic women that were all about the elegance and the finery and those luxuries, put on that lipstick that just makes you feel $1 million and go do your vacuuming.
Actually, that reminds me of Nancy Wake.
And then I think of Freddie Mercury, like in drag in that video, pushing the vacuum cleaner. What was that video? I want to break free. And then I get that song in my head.
Oh my goodness.
I know. It's another Leo, but anyway. So you're going to say something, Lishi?
Oh, no, just Nancy Wake, who was like a spy. She was an Australian who fought for the French resistance in the war, and she would jet in and out of not jet, they didn't have jets back then, but be dropped from aeroplanes in and out of Britain and France. And the two things she always carried with her was a tube of red lipstick and a red satin pillow. They were the things she had to have. And she was Mercury and Leo. But yeah, it was just this sense of like the red lips, and it actually helped her it helped her fight the Germans because she was able to get past them and slip past them. They just thought she was this pretty French girl when she was actually a major resistance leader. So,
I love it.
So interesting.
Nothing a bit of red lippy can do.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Yeah, okay. I'm thinking about all the lipsticks I've loved before. Like, they do me. I remember this my 21st, I got given a Versace one of the best lipstick I've ever worn. I don't know if they make makeup anymore, but anyway. Alrighty, so we could talk about
moving
makeup forever.
Along. We really could. But what's next?
The next aspect is Mars station retrograde, 11th of September. So here we are.
Yep. I think I'm talking about that, aren't I?
We've arrived.
We have been waiting for this all year.
Okay, hit us with it, Lishi. Give us the news.
So this is happening at 28 degrees of Aries, and Look, we've tapped into this, we've talked about this, we've already kind of alluded to so much about this, but there is really this sense, especially on the station, of frustration, of impatience. You know, Mars is a planet that wants to go forwards. In Aries, he just wants to go forwards and fast. And it's like the soldier who is screaming to get into battle and someone's holding him back, or he can't move, or he's stuck in the mud. And there's this, even a racing car kind of spinning its wheels. And for, you know, Mars is our energy, Mars is action. It's what drives us forwards. And for now, it's like, you're not going anywhere. You know, you're kind of stuck right here. You have to stay here and wait until there's a little bit of momentum. And that momentum will be backwards for now. And that momentum's going to be backwards, running back into Saturn again. And it's still within that whole area of Saturn. And right now it's in the bounds in terms of Saturn. So it's like poor old Mars in this place. The analogy I've been using for this is like it's in a boxing match where you've got your back against the ropes and you're kind of trying to go, right, how do I get off this? What do I need to do? You can't just come back up fighting. You kind of have to get your feet back on the ground again properly before you can get the momentum and the inertia to kind of fight back. So I just get this feeling of, especially the time around this, because when the moon moves into Aries the weekend before, so we're kind of talking the 4th and the 5th, it's tapping into this already. And then the next weekend when the moon is in Cancer and squaring this, it's going to really highlight and bring this to the fore. But yeah, we're talking about this retrograde. You know, it's going to be lasting all the way through until the 13th. Is it 13th, 14th of November? 14th of November. So it's going all the way back to 15 degrees of Aries. So for many of us, it's getting to know that area of your chart even more and tapping in to the inner fire, looking into our inner belly, that inner fire, to see really what's in there and trying to understand. And I also think it's learning to look behind us in this area of our chart, because this can be a part of our chart where we don't look backwards, where we don't head backwards, because it's Aries. It's like, let's just go forwards here. So it's like, okay, what's behind me? What did I learn from the past? Or what's on the back burner? What projects have I just left there and forgotten about that might be bubbling over that I need to kind of bring back in? But yeah, especially with the Saturn piece, it's like, okay, know that we don't have that much energy right now. Know that there's only so much we can do, and just do those things and do them well, and take all expectations about what amount of energy you've got off the table, and just do what you can do and take time out to rest if you need to. So yeah, that's kind of a start to things. I'm sure you girls have got lots to add.
I guess just two things is that Mars does go retrograde every 2 years. So Mars being retrograde itself is not unusual. It's not something, you know, that you'll never have experienced before, because all of our listeners have had this Mars, you know, it's literally every 2 years Mars goes retrograde. He's just in a different sign or a different place in the zodiac. And it is that idea of a slower pace or going back over, you know, territory that you've recently gone over. So it's like a redo, something's incomplete. I love those points you were making about like dealing with unfinished business, Leash. And so, yeah, it's about 2 months, and just think about the Aries part of your chart and either slowing down or being patient in that area of our life. The things that are unique about this Mars retrograde are the links to Saturn, which I know we talked a lot about in our previous episode. So that's all I wanted to add. I think you did a great job, Leash, of talking about that. Cass, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I don't know. I just keep thinking about the idea of the frayed ends of sanity.
The frayed ends of sanity. Yeah.
It's a Metallica song. But anyway, yeah, and I think like this Mars stationing, the tension and the frustration that will bring up for people could feel like, you know, your ends of sanity are really quite frayed, all things given. But one thing that I know to be true about retrogrades, and I see it happen each time, you know, as you said, Kel, regardless of the sign that it's in, is that even though Mars is, stationing, it's about to go retrograde for, a few months. What I find tends to happen in Mars, Mars is in this erratic and unpredictable state when it's retrograde. And so what tends to happen, it's not always just about going slow or going in reverse, because I think sort of what seems to happen with Mars is you can really like oscillate between like frantic energy and then lethargy. And there is this like ping back between got to do all the things and then I haven't got any energy to do anything. And I'm just like really curious to sort of like live this experience and to wonder, because it's Aries, will that feeling or that tension be more polarizing, like the extreme frantic energy versus the extreme I've run out of gas, like I'm pulled over on the side of the road and I can't go anywhere. So I think just as a tip for people, be mindful of trying to maybe conserve your energy or, at least, cut away things that are going to deplete it, or just try and just find maybe some type of cruise control as opposed to pedal to the metal, or, I've only got like, my petrol lights coming on or my gas light and I need to drive my car gingerly. So it's just finding that kind of economic fuel consumption with your own personal energy.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually, Cass, about that erratic nature of the retrograde. And just, like one of the things I find is Mars likes a mission too. So if you are in that, where it is overcompensating or going a bit crazy, give it a bit of a mission, go do some exercise or give it that project to focus on, like we were talking about last episode, so that you can drive that energy into something productive rather than exploding with irritation or anger or frustration. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I hope that's given everybody some food for thought, particularly over the next 2 weeks and this Mars retrograde station. So before we quickly wind up the episode, would you both like to share with us some of your astro happenings in each of your worlds? Any classes or webinars or what have you popping up?
Yeah, my next 4-part class on chart interpretation starts on Monday, September 14. It's the course on moon phases, personality, and special chart configurations. So it's course 3 in a series of 3 courses about birth chart interpretation. So for my students who've been working with me over the course of the year, we're getting to that point of adding all those little extra bells and whistles into birth chart interpretation. And it would be suitable for intermediate students who have previously studied aspects and want to go a little further and looking at how do the moon phases affect birth chart interpretation, but also some of the special chart configurations that really we should be considering. So that training is a 4-part online training starting Monday, September 14, and the info to sign up for that is on my website. What do you guys have going on?
And I did that course, must have been about 3 years
ago.
And it was awesome. Yeah, that was kind of as I was getting back into things. It was a really good refresh and also some new techniques. So yeah, it's not just for the intermediate student. I could definitely recommend it for the more advanced or people wanting to brush up their knowledge.
Thank you.
Speaking of going over old territory, revisiting that course. What about you, Alicia? Have you got anything coming up?
Yes. Well, I definitely have my Mars retrograde webinar. So for those wanting to understand more about that, that's available on my website to download. I will be doing some kind of webinar at this stage. I'm tossing up. I'm thinking about maybe doing the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at the end of the year. But yeah, watch this space for what that webinar will be.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And what about you, Cass?
Oh, I've got things, nothing to announce right now. I'm going to Mars retrograde you all. So stay tuned. Of course, consultations are available and also memberships to my Golden Circle Club, which has all my monthly astro updates, which you also have something along similar lines to, Kel. Mm-hmm. And no doubt Alicia will very soon. So anyway, well, that's all the insights for, not all of them, some of them, the highlights, I should say, for the first 2 weeks of September. So until next week, we look forward to seeing you then.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.